Good morning, Clan fans. All right, so episode 3 of Outlander season 8 premiered, and wow, so many revelations, so many surprises, and I cannot wait to discuss all of it with you. So let us begin by talking about episode 3 called, forgive me if I say this wrong because it is Latin, Abies Fraseri. Also, really quickly, I wanted to give a little update on my costume. So she's almost done, which is so cool. And this looks so much better than my first attempt, and I'm so happy about that. And it's just one of those things where you want to recreate a costume, and when you get it really close, it just really is so satisfying. And I already made this skirt last time. This was actually a really good find because it was fairly close to the color that they have on the show. And then it was so hard to find the fabric for the top, but thankfully, finally, I found something that works, and I am just so thrilled to share it with all of you. And it's almost done, just needs cuffs, closure, and then need to take some photos. So let's start, because there's a few things that happen in this episode. They are somewhat intertwined, but not entirely. So let us start with the Claire, Jamie, and Lord John drama. So Jamie is not over the Lord John situation, which we knew he still wasn't happy with Lord John at the end of season 7, but he's also still holding it against Claire. So what happens is Claire gets a letter from Lord John. He's requesting that Brianna come by and do a portrait of Lady Grey and her baby. But Jamie doesn't even want Brianna going to Lord John. Like, he's that upset. But Claire wants to go tell Brianna, and Jamie's like, no, you will not. It's like, dude, I might be modern, but no. You do not get to decide if Brianna gets to go or not, because it's her choice. Claire is like trying to talk to Jamie, like, you can't be mad at him forever, but Jamie keeps reiterating like he is a jealous man and he's allowed to feel what he feels, and like Claire tells him, like, eventually you're gonna have to deal with him because of William. And Jamie leaves saying, damn William. And Fanny happened to overhear this conversation, and she is she's concerned because Jamie is upset. She thinks with William, but it's mostly Lord John. But Claire tries to explain to her, like, no, it's just, he's just being a stubborn Scotsman. She tries to reassure Fanny, like, no one's mad at him, and do not worry, we're not gonna give you up, because even if Jamie was mad at him, he wouldn't, like, get rid of her in any way. They wanted her there, and they're gonna keep her. And I thought that was a really sweet scene. But, however, the jealousy comes up again when Brianna and Roger are discussing ways to get more artillery to the ridge, and they know that there is a bunch of that in Savannah. And since Brianna has an invitation, she thinks, oh, I can actually use this and we can get into Savannah, get the artillery, and bring it back. But Jamie does not want to hear about it. And Roger even says, like, no, it's okay, we can figure this out, and we can even use the Frenchman's gold to pay for it. And Jamie just keeps, like, pointing out flaws in their plans, and he tells them, no, I'm not going to allow it. Claire goes to talk to him, and she's, like, saying, like, don't punish them because you're mad at me. And it's like, we love Jamie. He's amazing. He's great. One of his biggest flaws, I will say, his jealousy. It's normal to get jealous. We all do it. But Jamie lets his jealousy, like, really cloud his feelings. And he kind of lets it take over him, and he snaps at the ones he loves, and he just gets really, he turns into a different person, basically. The green-eyed monster, we can call it. But I just don't like how he handles the situations when he's jealous, and he just snaps at Claire nonstop, and he gets so testy with her, and I don't like it. And Claire tries to explain, like, you know, I didn't really want to do that, and I only ever think of you when I'm in someone's bed, and because that's true. Claire had to keep explaining herself, and it just makes me mad because she really did have a good reason. She wasn't being unfaithful in the moment because she thought Jamie was dead. She was told plainly that his ship had sunk and that he hadn't survived. So, yeah. She was grieving. Unfortunately, Lord John came in and comforted her, and that's what happened. But she wasn't being unfaithful in the moment, and that's true what she says. And Jamie finally kind of like opens up, and he tells her like he's afraid that, I think the idea was that he was afraid she would be thinking of somebody else eventually, like because of the idea of him dying. I think that is weighing on him a little more. So that explains his feelings a little bit in this scene, because Frank's voiceover in the last episode said, "Who will hold her when you're gone?" So I think the idea of her needing another man to take care of her is just really bothering him. So that's where this made a lot more sense. But yeah, I don't love it when he gets like that, but eventually they got to a good point and they were tender with each other, and hopefully they've moved on a little bit. He might not ever like the idea, which that's fair. That's totally fair. But to get huffy with her every time it's brought up, that it's not healthy. Because Claire even says, like, you can't love somebody if you don't forgive them. And that's true, because he wasn't showing her much love in that moment. Another interesting thing about this episode is they have a lot of moments where they kind of think about things like from the past or character motives of characters that aren't around anymore. So one thing is Claire is thinking about the book that Frank wrote, and she's wondering, why did he write this? Did he intend for me to see it? Did he want me to feel bad that I didn't get to have a life with Jamie after Culloden and that he did? But yeah, it's hard to say exactly what Frank's motives were because he can't really speak for himself. He's only speaking in Jamie's mind as a kind of a forced narration in Jamie's perspective. But yeah, we don't know why Frank wrote the book or who it was intended for. I know people keep pointing out that Frank had a feeling that Claire was going to travel back to Jamie, and he even taught Brianna like how to survive, and that's how she knew what to do when she went back to the 18th century. But yeah, I don't know as far as the book goes who the intended audience was, or if he was eventually going to let Claire know before he left / died in the car accident. Before I move on to the next part, I just want to say that one of the funniest scenes was Claire telling Brianna about Lord John. So she did inform her about the letter because it's her choice. That's fair. But like Brianna wanted to know like why Jamie was upset with Lord John, and Claire explains like, oh yeah, well, Lord John had to marry me because of the trouble that I was in at the time, and since Jamie had died, like she didn't have much choice. But Brianna's like, oh, that's fair. It sounds like he was protecting you. It's not like you slept with him. And then Claire's face is just like, it tells everything. And Brianna's like this, like, just the shock on her face was so funny. But like she was lighthearted about it. She was making jokes and everything. She wasn't angry. And she's like, I don't have to call him Da now, do I? That scene was just, it was a nice moment of humor that we needed, although Jamie definitely would not have found it funny. The interesting thing about this episode is it kind of splits Claire and Jamie's plot in like two different parts. So we have the Lord John part at the beginning. We have Agnes Whitaker, a young African-American girl who shows up in the woods, and she finds Claire, and she asks her to help her mother who's pregnant, and she's having difficulty with the labor. So Claire is able to bring the mother in. Her name is Susanna. And while she's helping like figure out what's going on, she realizes, oh, you have twins. And part of the problem is that they are actually caught on each other, which I guess I haven't heard of them getting caught on each other, but I'm guessing it's common. I just haven't heard it. But yeah, it's an interesting plot point because they are interestingly free African-American people. And the husband eventually shows up. His name is Aaron Whitaker. And he wants to take Susanna away because he's like, I don't, A, trust white people. B, he is a free man, she's a free woman, and he does not want to get caught by anybody who would make that otherwise. But Jamie is able to convince him, like, we are here to help you. Claire is a great healer. He will help your wife. And even Susanna is like, please let her help me, because she was in so much pain at that point. Susanna is able to give birth to the first baby, a healthy baby boy. And then, unfortunately, when the second baby comes out, it's in a different position, so it's a little harder. But Claire is able to help Susanna get the baby out, but the baby is not breathing, and Claire is trying to give it like a little CPR, but it's still not coming back to life. And this scene was so sad, because I don't know if this was in the book or not, so I haven't heard about the scene at all. And I'm thinking, oh god, this is like she's gonna relive like Faith. And she actually does start crying, and she starts remembering like things that were said and her holding Faith when she was a stillborn. And then this is the most interesting thing that happens in this episode. The blue lighting is spectacular, because she's thinking about when Master Raymond said the color of blue is healing, and you see Claire in the present bathed in the blue light and the baby, and then you like hear Claire's heartbeat, and then all of a sudden the baby starts crying, and it's like, whoa. And I was so relieved that she was able to get the baby back to life. And it's interesting because they did show this at the beginning in the like the recap where Ottaway was telling her, or it was being translated to Claire, that when her hair turns snow white, that's when she will reach like her full power. So Claire might actually have some healing powers, which I think I kind of remember hearing about that, but I never like expected how they were going to bring it into the show. But yeah, the scene was just, it was so heavy, but then it just became so beautiful, and I think they did a great job with that. And then Jamie is later talking to Claire, like he knows the look on Claire's face when something's gone wrong, and he knows something different happened. And Claire explains, like, I don't even quite know how to explain what happened, but she still manages to say, like, what happened in Paris, how Master Raymond helped her heal. And then she said she felt like the same feeling when she was holding the baby. So Jamie doesn't quite know what to make of it, and Claire doesn't either. And then they start thinking about, like, well, wait, if Master Raymond had these healing powers, did he use these powers to bring Faith back? And then if he did, why didn't he tell her? Why didn't he bring her back to them? And it's interesting because I made a point about this. How Claire and Jamie had to go fight in, well, at least Jamie had to go fight, but Claire was with him in the Battle of Culloden. Sorry, this morning time and I'm not used to this. But yes, she's thinking not quite that, but that Master Raymond was a wanted man, so it was really hard for him to go about the city, and he eventually had to like get out of there, and he got lucky when Claire was able to use a deception to get him away from the king's clutches. But yeah, it's hard to say exactly what was going on there, and I'm getting the feeling we are going to get an explanation eventually. How, I don't know, but I was kind of happy that some of it was a little confirmed what I had theorized. But I don't know if they're going to go into that a little more eventually. But yeah, I thought it was interesting how they brought this subplot back, and I'm curious to see how they continue explaining it. Also, I sincerely hope nothing happens to the Whitaker family, because I was really concerned about that when Aaron showed up and explained like their situation. So it makes it sound like people could possibly be after them. I'm not sure. I don't quite know if this was in the book or if it's explained in the book what happens to them. I'm hoping they were able to just get out of there after the birth of the babies and they're fine. I don't want to see them get hurt. But yeah, I hope they weren't setting something up with that. So another subplot that they covered is Cunningham. So the episode began in a way I wasn't quite expecting. Fanny and Brianna are at the trading post on Fraser's Ridge, and Brianna goes to get some postage, and Fanny is suddenly approached by these two men who, one of them makes some lewd suggestions to her. It's like she cannot escape that life. And once they leave, Brianna comes over and she's like, did they say something to you? Like, she's very perceptive about it. And Fanny explains, like, yeah, he made some lewd remarks to me. And she could tell that they're officers because she knows how, like, they carry themselves and how they speak to people, especially women. And Brianna wants to go confront them, but she convinces her, like, no, please, let's just go. So Brianna does eventually tell Jamie, and Jamie goes to confront Cunningham about it, because we do see them speaking to Cunningham earlier in that episode. And Cunningham, like, explains, oh, they were just men that came to bring things from my son, and he shows that it's like a pistol and a sword. And we don't think much of it. It's like, okay, they were just doing an unusually good deed for creepy men. And what's interesting is later, like, this kind of gets put on pause. Later in the episode, we see Jamie showing Fanny the cairn for Murtaugh, and he says, you can use it now to speak to Jane, and you can place stones on it. And that was such a sweet moment. Sadly interrupted by the sound of gunshots, and good old Cleveland, our new favorite character. He has just killed, interestingly, the two men that bothered Fanny earlier. And he explains, like, these men were carrying artillery with them, and we see, like, a couple of boxes of muskets. So yeah, something was going on. But I don't want to give Cleveland too much credit because he's still a rude, creepy man, and we don't excuse that even if they're doing, quote-unquote, the right thing. But yeah, Fanny does point out to Jamie, like, yeah, those were actually the men that bothered me earlier. And Jamie goes to examine the men. He notices that there's something in one of the boots. He pulls out a letter. We don't know what is in this letter yet. And Cleveland is curious as well, but Jamie says, no, you don't get to see that. You get off my land now. Because they were also going to string them up on the tree, and it's like, okay, sir, first of all, this is not your land. Don't do that. In general, don't do that. But yeah, I don't know what to make of Cleveland other than that. I don't like his character. Not the performance. I just don't like his attitude. And I hope he doesn't become more of an antagonist to the group. So far, he's kind of done a quote-unquote good deed for the storyline, but I don't like how proud he is about it. So with the letter, Jamie has now done some detective work, and he goes to confront Cunningham because apparently this letter is supposedly from his uncle. And do we trust that? Apparently not. So Jamie takes the pistol that was delivered to him earlier, and he notices, oh, this is light. That's unusual. He opens it up, finds a piece of paper. The paper opens up and has, like, holes in it. And the holes happen to line up with the letter, which reveal the true message of the letter. So originally it seems like it's just about trees and random things, but no. The letter highlights about bringing artillery to Fraser's Ridge, basically. And that Cunningham is indeed working still for the crown. Yes, big revelation, even though we probably kind of saw it coming. But it's interesting how Cunningham does kind of a 180 in the scene. He's, like, acting all innocent, and he's like, oh, I don't know what that is. And then once Jamie, like, realizes, like, what the true message is, he's like, yeah, I'm still working for them. He's like, okay, the jig's up. But yeah, he explains to him that he planned to retire, but apparently God and the crown still had more plans for him. And he's trying to form a militia on Fraser's Ridge. Jamie thinks that it won't happen, but Cunningham points out you've been gone for a while, Mr. Fraser, and people might trust me more than they trust you. Or at least they're loyal to the crown more than they're loyal to their landlord, which I'm hoping that's not true. But residents of the Ridge have been known to stand against them, so anything is possible, unfortunately, at this point. During that conversation, Cunningham also points out a name. It was Major Patrick Ferguson, who is his commander. And I probably should have figured this out based on the music cue there, but Jamie's like wide-eyed, like, wait, what did you say? So I'm gonna guess that was a name that was mentioned in Frank's book. I'm not good at remembering all these things, so I'm going to assume that that's the case. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, I'm guessing it was because it was a name he saw in Frank's book, probably mentioned in the previous episode or two. I'm trying to get all the details. It's hard on the first watch. But yeah, it just kind of confirms for Jamie that, oh god, this actually is starting to come true. All the stuff that Frank said in his book. And Jamie leaves, and he hears Frank's voiceover basically telling him, like, see, it's all true, like, your days are numbered. And it's just, oh, that episode was so good and so creepy at the same time. It's like, okay, so they're in danger in so many ways. Great. But, I mean, that's normal for them. And especially with season 8, the stakes are going to be even higher, so there you go. The last point to cover in this episode is William. So, in the previous episode, he deduced that Ben had survived because his body was not in the grave that was marked gray, and he didn't find the tin soldier that he had given him, and yes, that was confirmed in this episode. That's what he noticed was missing. And he tells Lord John about this theory, and Lord John's like, okay, this theory most likely isn't true, but if it happens to be, it's possible Ben went to go speak to his commander. During a dinner that they are invited to, William is able to speak to General Leslie, who was Ben's commander, and he tries to, like, kind of get information from him without being too obvious, but General Leslie seems to confirm that he didn't hear much from Ben except a letter that was given to him after Ben's capture, so it doesn't seem very good for him. And then General Leslie also mentions, like, hey, I kind of want to learn about the condition of the prisons that are being held, and if there was a way that he could talk to one of his men, and he mentions that this man has spoken to Lord John as well, because he used to be the governor of Ardsmuir Prison, and William seems surprised by this. So this never really occurred to me that that was something that William wouldn't have known, but it does make sense because it was probably something in the past involving Jamie that William wasn't supposed to really know about. So I'm going to get the feeling that he's going to confront Lord John about that in the next episode, but we never really get back to that in this one. However, Lord John does have another visitor. Perseverance is his name, I think. Sorry, whenever it's a really fancy name, I have trouble knowing how to pronounce it, but we actually did meet him in the last season, and they seemed to be lovers. And this man makes it very clear in this episode when he is trying to come on to Lord John while they're at the dinner table, mind you. And he actually has a favor to ask Lord John. He wants to get into contact with, interestingly, Claudel Fraser, also known as Fergus. Like, what does this man have that he wants to involve Fergus with? And Fergus has the seditious papers, so I don't know if this man has information that he would want to give Fergus, or if he wants to figure out what he is up to. I don't trust this man, to be honest. But yeah, it was interesting that he name dropped him. And then he goes on to mention, like, the way Lord John can help is that he knows Claudel was taken in by Jamie Fraser, and he knows Lord John knows Jamie. So Lord John's like, okay, I'll see what I can do, or I'll think about it. Actually, that's what he says. He asks this man a favor, and he says, actually, while we're at it, I am looking for Captain Richardson, who seemed to magically disappear after he betrayed William to the Hessian soldiers. So this man's actually going to help him find Captain Richardson. And it's interesting. I feel like we didn't focus enough on this man in the last season, so I'm curious to see how they bring him back in the subplot. And on top of figuring out where Ben is, William is also trying to bring some comfort to Lady Grey, and Lady Grey is also, we could say, bringing comfort to William. She brings him a waistcoat that was meant for Ben, and she's actually embroidered it and put, like, beetles on it, which was an interesting choice. We do get an explanation about it later, but she seems to be developing feelings for William, and he seems to be feeling the same way, except she's more forward about it. Because by the end of the episode, while they are talking, she gives him a kiss. Oh, that was fast. She does that, walks away, and we don't know what to make of this quite yet. But before that, he had actually brought her something, and she was excited, like she was going to get a gift. It's like, why would you be expecting that from William? But anyway, he actually brings her Ben's belongings, and she looks really disappointed, which, I mean, one could argue that it's because she might have been sad seeing it, but she takes the items to a room and she opens up a drawer, and William happens to see the tin soldier. And Amaranthus, I think that's her name. Again, when it's a complicated name. She tells him that Ben had given that to them to give to their son when he was born. So that unfortunately might ruin the theory that Ben is still alive, but they wouldn't be bringing this up for no reason, so I am personally a little suspicious of this widow of his, just as William was in the first episode, but there might be more to the story than that. She's just a spy or whatever, but I'm curious to see what her actual story is. We learned a little bit about her background in this episode, and that, I believe, was true. But what is her more recent history? That's what I'm curious about. We also did not get to see Ian and Rachel in this episode, but it looks like they are going to have more of a subplot in the next one, especially Ian. Looks like Jamie is going to be needing some help, especially now that he knows that a militia is being formed on his ridge. And that was episode 3. So this episode had so much going on, and we learned a lot about a lot of characters. And there were a lot of theories about past characters that may or may not come back into play. We have a lot to learn still, and I'm curious to see what is up with Frank's book, what is up with Master Raymond's, like, plan that he had back in the 1740s. What was that? And yeah, what is up with current situations? What is Cunningham going to do with Fraser's Ridge? Especially in the preview, we see him almost kind of being threatening towards Claire, mentioning, oh, you happen to be alone at the house? It's like, what are you implying, sir? But yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with his character now that he's kind of going more towards a villain arc. And yeah, what is up with Cleveland too? It'll be interesting to see if Cunningham and Cleveland kind of do like a switch. Like, oh, Cleveland, even though he's not the best in terms of his attitude, might not be as bad as he seems, and then Cunningham is more cunning than he seems. Can I just say that name is clever? We didn't get to see Mrs. Cunningham in this episode, so I'm curious to see if she has anything to do with her son. Like, we haven't seen them together this whole time, so I don't know. We didn't focus on Brianna and Roger too much in this episode. We might get to see them a little more in the next one, especially if Brianna does eventually take up the invitation for Lord John's request. So, yeah, I'm curious to see. Oh, in the preview, they were actually at the print shop, at Fergus's print shop, so maybe they're not quite going to Savannah yet, but it looks like there's going to be some trouble starting up at the print shop, and there is an unfortunate plot coming, and I'm not looking forward to it. I'm sure a lot of ebook readers are not either. Don't blame you. But yes, we will see what happens, and yeah, that was episode 3. Tell me what you thought, and I will see you for episode 4. Have a good day, everyone. Bye. Before I go, I also had to let Autumn say hi. Autumn, say hi. Hello. All right, bye, everyone.